Okay, so today we're going to be going over, first, we're going to be going over swatting bugs. And this is brought to you by Stempathize, which is us for grades 6 to 8. So just a little bit older. And we're going to be going through all the slides together, and I'll give you time to work on it yourself since we're learning asynchronously. Okay, so first we'll just quickly go through this about us. So this is our website. This is our YouTube. We're volunteers from Stempathize. And if you or your parents have Instagram, you can follow us there or check out our YouTube. So this is our icebreaker. We're going to skip this just because we're working asynchronously. So today's topic is going to be common bugs in Python. So what's a bug? So you can give us an example of what is a bug. Like the first thing I thought of was a cockroach, which is really nasty. But like it's when you think about what a bug does, it's just kind of annoying. Like it's always like hovering about, and if I wanted it to leave, I would get it to leave. Like I really wish it would leave. So where does bug get its name? So now we're talking about bugs in the context of Python or in computer science, computer programming. So a bug got its name. This is very similar. A lot of interesting stories come from like popular conversations in English. So originally, another example of this is when we say there's like gremlins in the engines, that means kind of because in old times, whenever someone would set out like on a sailing ship, right? And in the engine room, stuff would stop working, they'd attribute it to like little creatures crawling around. So very similarly, when we had like physical computers that were massive, they span like the entire room. Similarly, it kind of arose that people would be like, oh, there's a bug in the computer because the computer was literally like physical and enormous. So there's like a bug flying around and messing everything up by just being there. So that's where we call bugs. Now, obviously, everything is significantly more streamlined, which means it's more simple. So I'm just on my laptop right now. You're probably also on a laptop. So of course a bug isn't going to fit in there. But now we just use this terminology or this word bug to basically represent any kind of error. And we're going to go into all the different types of errors that arise from our programming mistakes. So first we're going to start with this syntax error. So a syntax error often occurs when you make a typo. So a significant example of this is like, let's say you're typing something and then, you try to spell a word. Like let's say you were spelling banana, but you put two N's at the beginning and then another N at the end. That's like a syntax error. And if you've done an English class, they've probably talked about the word syntax before. So syntax error often occurs when you make a typo. And you can also look at this image. Sorry for typo. That's kind of an error. Okay, so now we're going to be going through these examples. And this is an example of syntax error. So we'll go through the first one together. I'll give you 10 seconds to look at the other ones and find the error, and then we'll go through the answers. So you can see in this first one, it says print hello world. But look, there's an extra parentheses right at the end, and that is a syntax error. We don't need it. It shouldn't be there, and it will obscure the function of our code if we keep it there. Okay, so I'll give you 10 seconds to read these three other ones and find the error. Okay, so some of these you may not know because maybe you're not that familiar with code, but we're going to go through them together, so no worries if you had trouble. But in this if statement, which is in kind of code, right, we forgot to put a colon here. So now the computer is confused because we're speaking it to it in our language. And it's like, I don't understand it because it speaks code. So if we don't put this colon right here, it's going to be like, I don't know what you're trying to do. Like you've just typed a bunch of words. So we need that colon. Okay. And next we have if 1 equals 1 colon print 1 equals. So now that I've given you some more information about what an if statement should look like, I'll give you a second to work on this. Okay, so keep in mind, this is a lot about learning the language. So if you don't know the language, you won't be able to find the errors. But it's okay because we're going to be going through it together. So this one, it says if one, but look right here. So when we want to say something is equal to something, we need to put two equal signs. That's the way we speak in this language, and that's the way the computer will understand it. So this is not going to work because the computer is like, what is one equal sign? We need two. Okay, so now I assume you've looked at the last one. This says for I, range 5. So the problem here is we're missing an in. For I in range 5. Because otherwise, like I said, the computer won't understand. So these are all examples of syntax errors. And if you didn't get it, no worries. Maybe it's because you're not familiar with the language or because you just couldn't find it. And it's going to be that way sometimes. And we're going to go through all the different types of errors. And keep in mind, just try to look for something that looks off, and keep in mind the type of error we're working with, because that's really going to help you like find and sort out these errors. So we're going to move on. Next is topic name error. So this is very different from a syntax error because syntax is similar to grammar, right? It's you're messing up like the sentence of language, so it's very confusing. But here we have topic name error. So this means when we're like misspelling or we're not correctly naming something, like a function usually or something that the computer has predefined. So it's kind of like we're messing up a word that the computer already knows. So it just gets even more confused. Okay, and now we've got topic type error. So this is a very interesting example. So you can see over here we have apples, we have oranges, right? A lot of people try to say like you can't compare apples and oranges. They're both fruit, but they're different types of fruit. And this is exactly how we want to think about it. So in case you forgot, we have different types of things in computer science. So we have integers, we have floats, we have words or strings. So right here, let's look at the code together. So you can see we have print 1 plus hello. Okay, so if you think about it in your mind, right? I want you to think about how would it look if we added these two together? Okay, I'll just give you a second. So the first thing I thought of was like one hello, right? But the problem is one hello, that's a string. Because when you're going to write it, you're going to write one and then hello, and they're going to be together. But do you see quotations around this one? No. So that means we are looking and defining one as an integer or a number. And try to add like two to a word without smashing them together. How would you do that? Would you like multiply it by two? Would you add two words together? We don't know. And that's because this is like apples and this is like oranges. So if you want to think about it in a way that's more familiar to you, this is kind of like math and this is like English, and it's difficult to just like smash them two together, and the computer isn't going to understand. So we can't write 1 plus hello because hello is a word and one is a number, and the what we call this, like I mentioned previously, is this is a string and this is an integer. So we can't add strings and integers together, which is why we call this a type error. Anytime you try to like smash two things together that are of different types, like apples and oranges, that's going to be a significant error. Okay, and now we've got topic index error, and this is a more difficult concept to grasp because index is kind of confusing. One thing we have to remember is that in computer science, everything is zero index. So that means we start at 0, which is an unusual way to go about it, I know, but we start from 0 and then we go 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So what the index is, let's say we have a list. Maybe this list says, hello, my name, or like Abigail, David, Grace, right? It says these three things. What we're gonna want to do is we put like invisible numbers by each one, and that's where they are in the list. So this is like 0th place, this is 1st place, this is 2nd place, right? So that's what we call an index. That's a kind of a simple way to look at what an index is. So I just want you to look at this code and I want you to observe what it's asking for and like what we are doing. So topic index error. So keep in mind, this is not the index places. This is what's in our list. This is the list. So you could write 1, 2, 3. We're trying to find 3rd place. That's what we're looking for. And we're trying to reference to the place where this number would be, and we're referencing to 3rd place. But think about it. This is a little catch. I just said that everything in computer science is 0 index. So that means we're going 0, 1, 2. Notice how there's no 3. There's only 3 things in this list. How, if we're starting from 0, that means we have to have 4 things to get to the 3rd place. So that's the error here, is because we're looking for 3rd place or the 3rd index, and there is none because we start from 0. This one's a bit tricky, but hopefully you understood that as we went through the elements. If you didn't, feel free to go back and rewatch it or maybe look online. Okay, so now it's your turn. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to look here and find everything wrong with this code. And there can be multiple things, maybe something you think you could streamline that's just kind of ugly looking. I'll give you a second to work on it. So hopefully you noticed at least one thing. So I'm going to start with the one thing. We usually go line by line because this is the most efficient way. But if something stands out to you, feel free to correct it instantly. So we can see here it says 4i in range 5. Okay, that looks fine. There's a colon. There is, it says range, and there's, a colon at the end. But here, notice how it says print the number is, and what's that? That looks kind of weird, right? In comparison. And if you want to go back to some of the previous slides, we have to use the same quotations. I don't know what this is. It's some kind of like tilted quotation mark, but the computer isn't going to understand. It doesn't understand that we've closed this string. Excuse me. And then immediately you should look to the right and it says plus I. Right here, plus I. So what we were just talking about, remember apples and oranges are math and English. Do you think we can add together the number is plus I? Do you think we can concatenate that? I don't think so, right? Because those are two different types of like values that we're trying to smash together and it's not going to work. So the two errors we're looking at right now, let me know if I missed anything or if you think something could be fixed to make it better. But right now it says the number is plus I. So first off, that we have a syntax error. The computer doesn't understand what this quotation mark is. Why is it there? Who knows? The second one is a type error. We can't add two different types together. We can't add the number is and I because it's just not going to work. Apples and oranges. Okay, now we're going to move on to this activity, which is going to be hunting for bugs like we just did. So we've just done all that practice. These are going to be a bit harder. Take as much time as you want. And the objective is that we're going to be able to find hidden errors in code. And it's kind of like a puzzle. So hopefully this is going to be fun for us both. Okay, and a quick note about bugs, right? We've been talking about very specific ones, but overall, bugs aren't obvious. That's why they're so difficult to find and they can be so frustrating, is that they're often hidden everywhere. And second, bugs can be on different lines, right? So we're going line by line. It could be at number 1 line. The first thing you wrote could have been like wrong, or you could have made a mistake. So you have to go line by line, or you have to have some system to make sure the ones that you pass by are good. And bugs can take a lot of time to find. So they are so small, just like people used to talk about bugs. The reason that they said that is because they're so tiny. Like imagine looking for a fly in an enormous processor, which is like the whole size of your bedroom. That would be very difficult. So that's the reason why a lot of even advanced computer programmers are going to struggle with this. The best way to remedy this is just try to avoid making these errors. Go slowly, like don't type fast. It's not a race. And if you do encounter bugs, just be patient and you can always ask for help. Okay, so we're going to see an example now. So we're going to find the bug in this code. I'm going to zoom in for you because I know it is a bit small and we want to be able to see our code. Okay, let's read it line by line together. So names equals Aiden, Angelina, Sophie, Ronald. Everything looks good. There's no odd colors. That's often an indicator we've made a name error. Names is spelled correctly. Everything in the list is properly quotationed. So this first line is looking good. You can put a little visible check. So next, indexes equals 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So our list has it has 4 indexes starting from the 0th place. And now we're saying for I in indexes, print F, hello, names. So now we're trying to call up these names. And for the index that we choose, my name is John. So I'm going to give you a second. Just look at the code, figure out, what might be a bit of a problem here. I'll give you a hint. It stems from this indexes. And if you can't find it, you think that's okay. We'll get back to it in a second. Okay, so we're back now and we're looking at indexes. So I'll just get to it. So it says indexes equals 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 indexes starting from the 0th place. But look at this. We have Aiden, Angelina, Sophie, Ronald. Aiden, Angelina, Sophie, Ronald. So right here, we have 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 indexes. Like I was saying earlier, I almost gave it away, but that's 5. So how are we going to get to 4 if we only have 4 things? And the tricky thing about this, I know this may not be making sense, is because we start from 0. So you have to add that 0. So we're only going to get 0, 1, 2, 3. We're only getting to this 3rd place, and that's why there's going to be an error, because it's going to be like, how am I going to print to index 4? There is no index 4. So the way we would solve this is you would delete this 4, or you'd add another name. Like, let's say we'll add your name here, right? Now we can get to the 4th index, or the 4th place in that list without any problem. So this kind of error, we'll title it index error. So that's the error in this bug. If you found it on your own, really good job. It can be super tricky to understand the 0 indexing thing. If you didn't, then that's okay. We're going to keep working and you'll get the next one. So now we're going to have a break. So you could just close this and we'll be back in just a second for me. Okay, now we're back. So we're going to be moving on to another example. And this one looks a bit long, so I'm personally kind of scared, but we're going to take it on line by line, and that's going to make it easier to digest. So objects equals boat, pizza, airplane. So we have 3 objects. Everything looks properly formatted. There's no syntax errors or name errors. We didn't call it objects. Next, we have quantity bought. 201. So we have a list. Total price 5,000, and I believe that is, I don't know, 10 million. Sorry, just had to read it. And then we have for I in range. We didn't spell range for range, so that's pretty good. No syntax errors so far. Print. The price for 1 objects, we're referencing an index, is total price divided by quantity bought. So I just want you to take a look at this. I know it can be a bit confusing, but I'm going to explain it, and I'll give you a hint that this error can be found here and here. So it's kind of like a cause and effect thing. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little hint. So I want you to look at this quantity bought, and then I want you to look at what we're dividing. We're dividing total price by quantity bought. I just want you to think about that for a sec. Okay, so now if you pause this, if you've already figured it out, we're going to move on. So here is the answer. The answer is that we are dividing by quantity bought. Look at this quantity bought list, 201. Okay, we divide by 2, that's fine. We divide by 0, do you think that's going to work? The answer is no. This is going to bring up a 0 division error, which means we can't divide by 0. It's not going to work. So that's the problem with this quantity bought. Because if you think about it, let's say we try putting 5,000 divided by 0. What's that going to do? It's going to be like, no, I can't do that because you can't divide by 0. So that's the problem with this code. It was kind of in the list, but also in the way we're working with that list. So that's a key thing to remember. And that's it. So now we're on to the discussion. Hopefully you've had kind of a bit of a fun time working out these puzzles. If you didn't get them, it doesn't matter. Even go back and, look at it and solve it again, and you feel good about yourself because I didn't get them the first time. It took a minute. So why can't a computer run a code even if the only error is a space? So think about all the different types of error we looked at. And why I told you the computer won't understand is because we're speaking its language and it only understands its language. So to a human, a space is like, okay, you just added a space. But to a computer, a space is something we're trying to tell it. And if we just put random spaces in, it doesn't understand what we're trying to tell it. So I want you to answer this question as well. Why do you think a computer can't run a code even if the only error is a space? Okay, so hopefully you've kind of understood that, you've let it sink in. I kind of answered your question previously for you, but hopefully you thought of another example, like maybe that bug in the giant processor is, confusing the computer. Anything that you couldn't think of, there's no wrong answers here. Whatever you think of is pretty much correct, and I'm glad you thought of it. So now we're going to be going on to the end of this presentation. So hopefully you learned a lot about swatting bugs, and I do want to remind you that swatting bugs is just like an anachronism. We're not talking about physically swatting bugs. We're talking about getting those bugs out of our computer program. So hopefully this helped you understand the different types of bugs. Hopefully you had fun practicing, and we hope you had fun learning about bugs with me. So I'll see you next time. I'll reiterate, this is our website, this is our Instagram, and this is the YouTube for Step with Eyes. So